I'd like to welcome you all to the Tombstone Gold Belt Breakfast. I see a lot of faces here so bright and early. Thank you so much for coming. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I would also like to acknowledge that many of us, including myself, live and work on the traditional territories, the vibrant traditional territories of the Yukon and the Indigenous communities of the Northwest Territories. I would now like to invite up a special guest. We have got our Yukon Minister of Energy, Mines, and Resources here today, the Honorable John Stryker, and he'll be making a few words.
Good morning, everybody. It's a packed room. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jasmine, for the introduction. I'd also like to thank Banyan Gold, Sitka, Rackla, and Snowline for inviting me this morning to say a few words on behalf of the Yukon's Premier, Ranj Pillay. He was supposed to be here, but he got pulled across to another table with Premier Eby this morning. I'm excited to be here this morning. It's the 40th anniversary of AME, and I'd like to thank the folks from Roundup for organizing this conference. I'd also like to, did anyone get to the Yukon First Nations Chamber of Commerce 10th anniversary reception last night? Anyway, it was a good time to connect with Yukoners and Yukon First Nations, and it was really well done, so a shout out to them. And I'm excited to be here to focus on the globally significant Tombstone Gold Belt region, and I'm pleased to see such a huge crowd so early in the morning. And I want to share with you a few points about the growth of the mining industry in the Yukon. We're working with First Nations in the Yukon to modernize our mineral legislation and to remove redundancy in our assessment system. We're investing heavily in infrastructure to support responsible mining. And our government is working hard to attract investment from senior mining companies and large financial institutions. We believe we have been successful in this area for 5 reasons. 1, strong minerals. If you don't know it, just take a look at any of our maps. You will see how well endowed the Yukon is. 2, good exploration results. 3, our commitment to First Nations. 4, our commitment to environmental, social, and governance. And 5, our international marketing efforts. The Yukon has gone from having 0 to 8 senior mining companies in the Yukon in the past 10 years. Also raising the profile of the Yukon are the companies in attendance this morning. Tara with Banyan, Mike with Sitka, Scott with Rackla, and I think Craig and the folks from Snowline are here, but Scott's not here, and congrats to Scott and Bria on their new baby. 3 years ago, these companies had a combined resource base of less than 1 million ounces. Now, just between Banyan and Sitka, they have an inferred resource of close to 8 million ounces. And according to many estimates, Snowline's Valley target could significantly add to the Tombstone Gold Belt's resource estimate. 3 years ago, the 4 companies represented on this panel had a combined market cap of 17 million. Today, it's approximately 1 billion. We also appreciate the value creation that is happening in the Tombstone Gold Belt via Victoria Gold. Victoria Gold is the largest hard rock gold mine in the Yukon's history, and they are this year's Murray Pezim Award winner to boot. If we could just give them a big round of applause. Right next door, there's Banyan and Snowline, a number of companies. Right next door, there's Banyan, who are very quickly put together a resource of 6.2 million ounces. And following the trend is Sitka, Snowline, and Rackla. With the success of Banyan and Snowline, a number of companies have been able to leverage interest and financing. I recognize there are a number of senior mining companies in the audience this morning that have been attracted to the gold play that is unfolding in the Yukon. At the same time, I also want to recognize the significance of the Yukon's critical mineral assets, which have also attracted senior mining companies' attention and investment. The Yukon's mining industry truly provides a wealth of opportunities. We believe that by embracing investment in our communities, respecting First Nation governance, and by committing to environmentally responsible mining, that our jurisdiction offers all the elements of a prosperous and sustainable mining future. I expect this to be an exceptionally busy and successful field season on all fronts, and like you, I eagerly await the results. With that, I'll conclude my remarks this morning. The Yukon team is here at BRIC and Roundup, and I invite you to reach out to connect. The Premier's here, Deputy Premier's here, I'm here. Two of our DMs are here. Lauren and Deb are here from ECDEV and Energy Mines and Resources. Please come and say hi. I hope you will join us at Yukon Night tonight, and I look forward to visiting with you over the coming days. And with that, I will just say thank you very much for the opportunity to address you this morning. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you very much for coming. I also want to introduce another special guest that we have in the room, Hockey or Chief Donna Hope of the Notchonayak-Dun First Nation in Mayo. Donna comes from a strong matrilineal lineage that's tied to the lands of the Notchonayak-Dun First Nation. Her mother was born and raised in Mayo. Her grandmother is Maisie May Moorburg, and her great-grandmother is Ellen Prophet, and great-great-grandmother is Big Maisie, as she is known. She has a background in education, a diploma in renewable resource management. She graduated with honors with a Bachelor of Science and is also in the process of just completing her Indigenous governance degree. I met Donna almost 13 years ago. She's a very talented artist with her fish scale artwork and her beading. I'm a proud owner of many of those. She also worked as the liaison for Notchonayak-Dun to Alexco many years ago. She worked in the lands department and even was the director of lands. So great that she was elected in April of 2023. She's very dedicated to her community alongside her council and staff with priorities really on wellness and community healing. So I'm very pleased to invite Donna to the stage.
Kemisothan, good morning. Masicho, thank you for the invitation to come here today to provide remarks at the 2024 Roundup event. As the first elected female chief of the First Nation of Notchonayak-Dun, I am honored and welcome this opportunity to share our perspectives and approach to sustainable mining with representatives of the industry and other governments who are here today. The First Nation of Notchonayak-Dun has been sustained by our traditional territory since time immemorial and seeks to ensure that all of our future generations will likewise sustain the lands and waters of our homeland. Currently today, of the Yukon total, 37% of placer claims, 44% of quartz claims, and 74% of quartz leases are all in the First Nation of our traditional territory. Mining has been a part of the life of our people since the early gold rush. Mining is our lived reality every single day. Our voices have been marginalized for far too long, and those days of irresponsible mining are over. While we are not against development within our traditional lands, we want to see development done responsibly, grounded in principles of reciprocity and respect of our rights and interests, including our right to free, prior, and informed consent. In the past, mining was done without us. It was done to us and done without benefits while irreversibly impacting the lives of our people. Now is the time for reconciliation through responsible development and corroborating long-term Indigenous partnerships. Nurturing and continuing to develop long-term partnerships with companies within our traditional territory, such as Snowline and Banyan Gold, we can establish better legacies based on sustainable, responsible and respectful development of mining practices planned over generational timelines into the future for those generations to come. We want to help industry to build that foundation of trust and respect and to understand how to work with us in spirit of collaboration and co-management to ensure mutually benefits outcomes for our community and for industry. Partnerships engaged right at the early stages of Class 1 exploration, and open transparency through all stages of classes, including Class 3 and Class 4, progression and development planning, operational monitoring and compliance, and closure and reclamation planning and implementation towards meaningful efforts of restoration of damages incurred to lands resulting from death of 1,000 cuts. As a key part of all of this, the First Nation of Nacho-Naigdan is in process of finalizing our own mineral mining policy to communicate our approach to mining within our traditional territory, from staking claims to exploration to mine construction, closure, reclamation, and full restoration. We are very excited to share this policy with all of you in the next few months. To be clear, the First Nation of Nacho-Naigdan approach is not against development. We just want to ensure that it's done the right way, with our consent and our participation. The First Nation of Nacho-Naigdan look forward to engaging with proponents on this basis moving forward and sharing with industry what consent and participation looks like and what it requires. Together, we can change the perception of past mining, which was based on outdated and antiquated mining legislation and historical practices leaving trails of bad legacies of perpetual cleanup, like Faro and Keno Hill. Through meaningful modern treaty partnerships based on transparency and proudly showcasing highest standard practices, which have the least negative impacts, meet obligations within our final agreements, and respect our traditional, cultural, and spiritual ways of knowing and seeing and being. True partners working hand in hand who share our commitment towards reconciliation in the spirit of respect, stewardship, and sustainability, taking into consideration the future for future generations. Together, we can achieve prosperity for all of our people and environmentally sustainability, not only for today, but for all future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Hope, for your message this morning. That really put a lot of perspective into the Nacho-Naigdan and the collaboration you seek. And it was really important given that I think many in this room had not really heard from the Nacho-Naigdan leadership. So thank you very much for that again. Minister Stryker may not still be here, but his perspectives on the investment in the Yukon were quite valuable to hear that the government of Yukon is embracing mineral exploration. We're going to have what I hope is a very dynamic and hard-hitting morning in terms of insights to the Tintina Gold Belt. I think we've got about 40% technical, 60% financial. Try to balance it out so you do get those really good insights. To set the stage, and I'll get going because we're a few minutes behind, let's tee up the next slide. And what we're going to focus on, we could advance, thanks, and one more. So we're going to focus on that salmon-colored Tintina Gold Belt, these Cretaceous granitic rocks within the larger Tintina Gold Belt. So Tintina Gold Belt, 1,000 kilometers long. Tintina Gold Belt, probably 500 kilometers long. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, here's all the players, including some critical minerals projects. One more slide. And then you can see the mines. Fort Knox, almost 9 million ounces of production, 3.3 million ounces of resources. The first really bulk mineable project mined in North America. The Eagle mine, John McConnell's successful heap leach from the beginning, not a pivot from mill to heap leach. And then the Pogo mine, underground, Sumitomo Tech originally, now the Northern Star. You can see it's produced over 5 million ounces, about 15 grams. Another derivative type deposit from the Tombstone Gold Belt. Next slide. And just to compare these deposits, Fort Knox initially reserve grade 0.8, and that was milling. It was only later on that they pivoted to heap leach. And the blue bar is milling. The lighter blue is heap leach. Eagle's reserves at 0.65, moving across. Oramac, the jury's out on what it's going to be, but at 0.61, a heap leach or a mill. And then RC, which is Sitka, having their resource at 0.68, sorry. And finally, our estimate, and I know other analysts have estimates as well, in terms of what Valley may have. We've got 1.29 with a higher grade core. Next slide, please. I know Craig Hart will be talking about this at 3 o'clock, but how to navigate the vertical and lateral expressions of these systems. So on the left-hand side is a cross-section, a cartoon of the vertical extent of these reduced intrusive-related systems, pink being the granites, plutons, and the Hornfeld's Oreo being yellow. And he's got quite a new model for in terms of the size of that Hornfeld's. He may touch on that this morning. And then his plan map in terms of the lateral zonation, mainly chemically with bismuth telluride towards the core and arsenic antimony on the flanks. Next slide, please. And then it's really important, the erosional levels in terms of navigating depth. Oramac Banyan's project being quite high, all in the sediments, flat veins. And then down, we'll find out more and more as these companies explore, but how far has that cupola, or that top of the granite stock apophyse from maybe a larger batholith been eroded? Next slide, please. And then positive indicators, we'll hear more from the speakers when they come up, and it's in the handout, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but I think this is some of the things, some of the ideas and aspects we're tracking, having visited all 4 sites. And the bismuth tellurium is really important in terms of vectoring in on the hotter part of the system where you have the better endowment. Craig may talk about Lamprey dikes and mafic intrusions. Next slide. Okay, so these are the 4 companies and their location, all in the Yukon. Some of the companies, it's Sitka and Banyan, have really good infrastructure. They're in the Mayo district. And so we'll hear from them and their perspective. And then Rackla is the farthest to the east, straddling the Northwest Territories border in the Yukon. And then Rogue Valley's, Snowline's project is just to the west of that. I'm going to invite the 4 panelists up to the stage now to sit down. And I think you've already met Tara Christie, CEO of Banyan. Mike Berkey, what's your official title these days, Mike?
VP Corporate Exploration.
VP Corporate Exploration from Sitka. We've got Scott Castleman in the middle from Rackla as VPX, and then Craig Hart is the chairman of Snowline. So we're just going to take 1 or 2 minutes. We'll start with Craig. Connection to the Yukon, and then maybe, because Chief Hope has just spoken recently, maybe just a quick comment on First Nations and the Nachanayat Dun relationship. And we can come back to that a little bit more later. But Craig, just a little bit about yourself and your Yukon connection.
Sure. My name is Craig Hart, as indicated. I went to the Yukon as a young geological student back in 1980 when I was 19 years old, and I fell in love with the Yukon, and I said, that's it. And as soon as I graduated, I moved there. And so I'm fortunate to have 43 summers in the Yukon, and I lived there for 20 plus years, where I was a founding geologist with the Yukon Geological Survey, and have been up there, of course, every summer since, in working on various capacities. Eventually, I became a professor at UBC and had a number of projects with students and industry up in the Yukon. And I met my wife up there. My kids are from there. I still have in-laws there. I still have a house there. I'm still pretty connected. Spend as much time there as I possibly can.
And a world authority on reduced intrusive related gold deposits. Chair Christie.
So I started in the Yukon when I was pretty young in the placer mining business. My dad's a PhD geologist, and he dreamed that placer mining would fund his hard rock exploration, and so got a little bit of both in my early career. And of course met Craig and learned about geology and went to the geoscience forums. And when I went through university, I then bought my first home in the Yukon. Met my husband in the Yukon, and had our daughter in the Yukon. So it's a great place to live, and certainly a fabulous community. Of course, became the CEO of Banyan in 2016. In terms of relationship with Knox, which was the second part of your question, I became the president of the Placer Mining Association way back in, I think it was 2003. I'm not going to tell you how old I was. And we were working with all the First Nations in the Yukon on an agreement with DFO in the placer mining industry. So I've had a long history of working with First Nations all across the Yukon. And then in 2011, started the charity Every Student Every Day with John and Victoria Golden again. Really have focused on trying to engage with First Nations on that initiative to really help make a difference in communities. I'm not going to go on for too long because I know it's supposed to be short, but long history in the Yukon, and that's really when my relationship started.
Fantastic. And Scott?
My first experience in the Yukon was in 94, 95. I'm a geologist, so it was mineral exploration projects there. Like Craig, fell in love that first summer and eventually moved there. I think we moved there in 98. Didn't meet my wife there, met her outside, but she loves the Yukon as well. Our son was born there, and I've been living there ever since.
Fantastic. Mike Berkey.
I have kids born in the Yukon as well. Same thing, geologist. Moved up there in 1987, worked since 83 doing exploration. And 20 years with the Geological Survey, worked beside Craig, and I had offices together when the whole Tombstone Gold Belt started to evolve. So it's been a great place. It's a great place to raise your family. I can't tell enough about how it's been good for all our kids. And as far as exploring and seeing the whole Yukon, I was lucky enough to see everywhere. Our project is in the traditional territory of the Knox. So our contractors and stuff have agreements. We've not ever been able to get to the stage yet of sitting down and hammering out an exploration agreement, but certainly the discoveries that we've made and just announced are pretty key, and we look to play a pivotal kind of future role with the NND and really take to heart the words that Chief Hope said this morning. I think that's a pretty clear and important message. So we're looking forward to being involved in that vision that they have.
Excellent. And for context, Tara's an engineer. Everyone else is a geologist, including myself. Okay. So what's going to happen this morning? We're going to have 5 to 7 minute pitches by the companies. They're going to come up and tell their story. I'm going to ask a question next. We'll have all four present that way. Then we'll have a sit down and we'll have a Q&A. I'll lead that, but really looking forward to questions from the audience as well. I think there's a roving mic, so look for that. And I'm hoping Jasmine will keep me on schedule. So I think Mike Berkey is up first. Can we have the next slide?
The clicker's right there.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Let's go. There we go.
I'm Mike Berkey. I've been introduced. So we have the RC Gold Project in the Tombstone Gold Belt. Forward-looking statement. We're geologists up here, so we're optimists. So we always chase dreams. So that's what we're doing.
Sitka Gold's RC Gold Project is located in the heart of the Yukon's Tombstone Gold Belt. The project is accessible year-round from Dawson City. With a long history of placer mining activity in the area, the roads are well maintained, and the drive from Dawson to the project is only 2 hours. In 2016, while examining a new access route within the Clear Creek area, Corco and his son Ryan, with plenty of experience in the region, recognized the new potential in the district and started compiling the land package as we know it today. Exploration activity began on the project in 2017, with initial diamond drilling occurring in 2020, and in 2021 the Blackjack Zone was discovered with 220 meters grading 1.17 grams per ton gold in hole 21. This marked the discovery of an exceptional new bulk tonnage intrusion-related gold deposit. The first resource for the project was announced in early 2023. Now the work continues to expand the known resources and mineralization on the project. The Clear Creek Intrusive Complex is a cluster of intrusions in a 3 by 5 kilometer area. Sitka Gold is currently focused on the northern part of the Clear Creek Intrusion Complex. Sitka believes these intrusions emanate from a common source at depth. Since 2020, drilling has primarily taken place on the Blackjack, Eiger, and Saddle zones. This led to the announcement of the initial resource of 1.34 million ounces in the Blackjack and Eiger deposits. Drilling in 2023 was able to expand the known mineralization in the Blackjack zone and intersect mineralization within the Saddle zone located midway between Blackjack and Eiger. Drilling is planned to expand the Blackjack and Eiger deposits, which are open in all directions, prove the resource potential of the Saddle, in addition to testing other known gold-bearing intrusions on the district-scale property.
Yeah, so there we are. We did most of our exploration during COVID. So nice to be past that stage of life. So we've got a few of the people on our team. As I mentioned, my name is Mike Berkey. I'm a geologist, been in the Yukon for many years. Corco, our CEO, is in the back of the room here somewhere. Greg Dawson, our VP Exploration, and a number of other folks. Donald Penner. We're a very technical team, geologists on the board, all with plenty of years of experience in the Yukon. We've been able to get Craig on our advisory board. We've been friends for many years and co-workers, so good to have Craig's input on what we're doing in the geological world. There's our company snapshot. We've been active in the area for a number of years, and just in the last year, we've started to see a bit of recognition in the markets for the work we've been doing and the results we've been getting. So our share price has increased a little bit, and we've been able to raise money in the very tough markets that we have. So we're financed for our next year of exploration. So that's a nice position to be in. So you heard about the location. We actually access our project through Dawson. We drive past Stewart Crossing instead of turning right and going to Mayo. So we're about 2 hours out of Dawson. You can fly into Dawson's 5,000-foot paved runway and then hop in a truck and get out to our project. We call it the heart of the Tombstone Gold Belt. It's got great infrastructure in the area, and of course we're all in the room because we know what a great jurisdiction the Yukon is. So it's critical. This is a zoom in of the area between Dawson and Mayo. You can see where Victoria Gold is. This laser pointer isn't very good, but anyways, Core recognized with Victoria Gold and going into production that this was a good place to be. So that's when he started accumulating this ground position. Banyan's down here, the former producing Brewery Creek that John picked up, and Victoria Gold also has claims adjoining us. So since May 2020, there's been a number of waves of exploration through this belt starting in the late 80s. The last wave, since May of 2020, there's been over 10 million ounces of gold added in this central part of the Tombstone Gold Belt. The bulk is Banyan's Ormac project with 6 million ounces. Victoria Gold continues to add ounces to their resource base. They've made their discovery at Raven, and of course our new discovery at Blackjack and Eiger. So it's been a busy place during some tough times. We all worked through COVID, but it's getting into the more mature phase of mineral exploration, development, and mining. So again, district scale, big package. We announced that initial resource in January of last year, 1.34 million ounces of gold, so a nice start. The deposits are 100% owned on our property. We've done some bottle roll tests, so the metallurgy is no surprise. These deposits are very similar. It's the same as Victoria Gold or Fort Knox over in Alaska, and it's non-refractory ore. So there's our mineral resources. We have 2 deposits. They're a couple kilometers apart. Blackjack's a little higher grade at about 34 million tons at a grade of 0.83 for 900,000 ounces contained. The Eiger, 27 million tons at a half a gram. And combined, those are 61 million tons at a grade of 0.68 for that 1.34 million ounces. There's a leapfrog shot, those yellow blobs or the resource shell. This last year we drilled another 16 holes, 6,500 meters outside of the resource area, mostly on the Blackjack. And we've hit mineralization in all those holes except for one. And then we drilled a couple holes in the saddle zone. That's an intervening zone between the two deposits. Hit mineralization there, so the resource is expanding. There's some of the highlights of drilling in yellow. We just want to point out, especially the Blackjack, there's a higher grade portion of this deposit. So we have lots of intersections as well in the 1.5 to 2 gram range. Many starting at surface in the early stages, up in hole 21 at surface, some nice high grades, 24. And then recently hole 47 was one of the last holes on the Blackjack, and we hit the high grades at depth. So we're kind of chasing that down. So the deposit has a nice vertical depth and a high grade component to it as well. We've got a large land package, but we're really focused up in the Clear Creek intrusive complex part of it. There's 9 known gold-bearing intrusions on the property, but we're focused here. We were lucky enough to find 2 deposits very early in the exploration program. There are kind of drill targets on some of these other zones that we haven't stepped out to yet, but we recognize the potential there. That's why the property encompasses those. So definitely some exploration potential beyond the deposit we've discovered, but we'll focus on expanding those resources and then look at the potential elsewhere on the project. So this year, as I mentioned, we have $8 million in the treasury, fully funded for our exploration this coming up year. Got a 15,000 meter drill program planned. Our 2 deposits, Blackjack and Eiger, are both open in all directions. Saddle Zone is a potential new area of resources. And then we have that more regional targeting on those other intrusions. So that's our plans coming up. And that's it. Thank you. You're next. So this laser pointer works better there.
So Mike, just stand for your one question.
Okay.
You've been able to raise money in the second half of the year, $8.7 million. Congratulations. Maybe you could touch on that a little bit. And I also wanted to mention, I'm going to mention the share price performance over the last 4 years for every company. You guys are up 24% in that time. So just a little bit of color on those financings.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a tough grind in these markets, but we're starting to get recognition for the work that the drill hole's been doing. So in August, we had a private investor, Maria Cox-Gubbins, who's a big investor in Snowline Gold. So they've been investing in Sitka Gold for a couple of years, but in August, they recognized what we were doing and approached us to do a private placement at a premium to our share price. And I think when the market recognized that this very smart family was investing in Snowline at the start and was working with us, that kind of triggered a bit of a recognition in the market. And so now we've raised additional flow-through funds, and that's helped, I think, raise the bar, and we've got kind of a new level of support in the market. So we're pretty happy about that. And obviously the discoveries that Tara's making and the Snowline discovery has really made people recognize the potential in this belt of rocks, and rising tide floats all boats, right? Yep. So we're happy to be neighbors. We're happy to be Yukoners. It's great to be able to talk to each other all the time and do our best to figure this thing out.
Tara Christie, you're next.
Okay. Well, you're looking at our project area there. That's 6.2 million ounces with the Oryx Hill up here deposit, down across the power line deposit, and the airstrip deposit in the front. Key things you'll see there, very moderate topography, actually even more moderate topography than Victoria Gold. You know, no big rivers or lakes, glaciers, mountains. In fact, this is the main highway that goes through that brand new power line, which was constructed in January of 2021, 138 kilovolts, only energized to 69. That's Victoria Gold substation, and this is the South McQueston Road, but it's also the road to Victoria Gold. It's government maintained here. Even 4 bars on the cell phone here, and fiber optic cable goes out that power line to Victoria Gold. So great infrastructure, lots of existing roads. This was all originally drilled off by United Keno Hill, so, but unfortunately they weren't looking for gold. That first gold assay here wasn't actually taken until the 1980s. And, Michael already talked about the belt. Really exciting. If you were to draw a circle around us already of 50 kilometers, we would have 18 million gold equivalent ounces in resources. And I know the minister spoke to some of the resources and the value creation in this jurisdiction, but I think that number is just getting larger. And certainly once you can say, hey, you got 20 million within a reasonable distance of an operating mine, you've certainly got a district, and that should drive lots of attention. And that's just right around us, doesn't even include Snowline and Victoria Gold. So Hekla's right beside us. Oh, that's the former Keno Hill. It was purchased September 2021. And, they're really busy there, certainly getting that back into production. Victoria Gold just put out their production numbers, meeting their guidance. That's exciting, that we all are looking forward to that, hitting the 200,000 ounces per year. They're 42 kilometers by road, 25 kilometers as the crow flies. We have 173 square kilometers here. You can see our property there, and I won't belabor the gold belt. You're going to hear that over and over again and see the videos. But it's districts are formed when these belts of rocks get large numbers of ounces. There you can see Victoria Gold's Raven deposit. Currently a resource of 1.1 million ounces at 1.7. We know that they've drilled there. They had some spectacular results, so looking forward to that resource update. And it's just 4.5 kilometers across the valley from us. So we're really excited about seeing that. There's high grade right near us. Yes, we're in the upper portion. We haven't found our intrusion, but we've got infrastructure, roads, power, cell phone, mineralization right on surface. Here you can see the resource. Put out this resource in May, 6.2 million ounces, 0.61. Since then, we drilled 25,000 kilometers, or 25,000 meters. I wish it was kilometers. Boy, we could do a lot with that, between Powerline and Oryx Hill. So we know they're connected. We know we've expanded Oryx Hill, and they will become one deposit. But 5 kilometers overall in strike by about 1 kilometer. We have those same sheeted veins, lots of visible gold. Don't quite have the vein density of Snowline, but again, here, vein density really is a key indicator of this mineralization in Powerline and Oryx Hill. Airstrip's slightly different. It's a calcareous replacement deposit, dips at 60 degrees beneath Powerline. And yes, we've drilled deep underneath Powerline and hit Powerline mineralization. Been a really quick journey to 6.2 million ounces. 2020, 900,000 ounces, drilled 40,000 meters through COVID, put our head down. Not a lot of recognition during that to get our 4 million and then 6.2 million here in 2023. So on average, I think we added over 40 ounces per meter that we drilled for about $7.40. An ounce. So, pretty exceptional record in terms of both adding ounces. We know that these deposits continue to be open. We've got lots of targets. We've been spending our winter digging into our data, looking at all our various exploration options, from understanding where the higher grade is to potentially continuing to add ounces. We're building our team. We're really getting into a new phase. We believe we're still in that exploration and discovery phase, but getting close to that pre-development. We brought on Kai Woloshin, who's in the room here. He was over there, but he moved. So I don't know where he is now, but talk to him. Really, he'll be leading our metallurgy and our studies and our baseline environmental. James is also in the room, great, really helping us target our geology and understand what's going on. Really gets the credit for our 2019 discovery. I see our director, Mark Blythe, also in the room, a mining engineer, very helpful as we're starting to think about pre-development and moving into our studies. CFO David Rutt is here, and of course you all know Jasmine. She's been a big part of organizing today. Also have Brad Thrall helping us on the metallurgy. We're sitting in a pretty strong position after the forest fires in the summer. We decided to not drill and maintain our cash, wait for a little bit of time when people might appreciate our drill results. We did put out drill results last year. So sitting with a strong treasury. You'll also notice in our financials that we filed last week, peak, we had about $700,000 in income. That's when we shut down for forest fires. We both provided accommodation as well as services. We're still providing accommodation and doing some other services, and we're anticipating $700,000 to $1 million in revenue from that from this year. And it also keeps my guys busy. In terms of share registries, Victoria Gold, 11% shareholder, a good solid shareholder, and certainly they understand the value of what we have. Cisco Development at 4, Franklin Precious Metal and Fidelity, both of them have done site visits and made their investments. For our scale of company and market cap, having so many institutions really does attest to the quality of the project and the team. We have Cormark and Paradigm that cover us. Hopefully some other analysts will be picking us up. You'll notice our last financing was actually in 2022, in December. No warrants on the last financings we've done over the last 3 years, so there's no warrants outstanding. I'm a 4% shareholder, which I've bought in the market. I have a very substantial investment in Banyan, so I intend to make my money not through my salary, but through ultimately alongside my shareholders. We do have a bit of an advantage in permitting in that we have a wealth of baseline data, actually millions of dollars and years of data, given that we have all of the baseline environmental data from Alexco, now Hecla. That was part of the original agreement, as well as Victoria Gold continues to do studies across our property from wildlife. We work collaboratively with them, both sharing the costs of mobilizing people to do our baseline, as well as sharing data. So this gives us a huge advantage. And Victoria Gold and Hecla have both shown what it takes to get through YESA in this jurisdiction, and we're really fortunate to have NND who's been through the process and really understands how to participate in the mine environmental assessment and licensing processes. Having hydropower, having roads existing on the property also is a big advantage. Where are we? If you look at Cormark's listing of heap leach projects or open pit projects in North America, we're the 5th largest. I'd argue we have the opportunity to continue to go up that curve because we certainly think there's potential to add more ounces. And I keep getting asked, isn't 6.2 big enough? That's a good question. I ask myself that all the time. We've worked really hard to strategically position Banyan, get it to that scale where it is really compelling. 6 million ounces with infrastructure, existing baseline data. We do have 2 mines beside us, and recall that Hecla purchased tax properties. So, they've obviously got an interest in gold. They're very, very focused on putting Keno Hill back into production. Victoria Gold's obviously very focused on getting their production up and some of their internal exploration. But I think we're pretty compelling next door given our ability to move our project forward. We are year-round. I'm a northerner. We've set up our property with both the infrastructure and the equipment to be able to operate year-round. We've drilled to December 20th and unfortunately had to keep drilling through -55 at one point because it came on a little faster than we thought. But hey, we survived and didn't break anything. So we really benefit from strong shareholder support and a strong treasury. In 2024, we'll have a program. We haven't announced exactly what we're going to do yet because we're spending some time really going through our data to figure out how to add the most value for our shareholders. We're de-risking that with our metallurgy work, which we'll have that in the coming quarter here, talking about what our processing options are, and we do think that is important given the other projects in the region right around us to have optionality on our processing. And this jurisdiction's just getting more exciting with the discoveries and the investment in it. So that's the main pitch, Michael.
Okay. And your stock's up 356% over the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. Looking at exploration and what it takes and that. So congratulations. Systematic metallic screen fire assays have not been conducted on the project. Not looking for a long answer right now because I think we can get into that a little bit more. Give us a sense for what's ahead on metallic screen fire assay.
So we've done some preliminary work and it wasn't conclusive. Like the whole concept is, are we under reporting grade? Yeah. And so that could be very significant for Banyan if we are. We know we have coarse gold. We know that 60% of the gold is in the plus 140 mesh or 105 micron, so roughly 2.5 times the grade in the coarser size fraction. So we have done some metallic screens. We also did some proton analysis, but this is a really large deposit, and so in order to be representative representative, and that was on one specific area. We need to do a much larger sample size. So we are thinking about that. It's one of the options that we have in our program for this year, to do a much larger program than that, because our initial work wasn't conclusive that there was a trend. We weren't rushing to do that, but we have an awful lot more drill results since then. You know, it really is something, and if that's, and we've had lots of people express that opinion, it's something to certainly investigate.
Okay, thank you. Scott Castleman.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. That's an image of the drill sitting on our hit property from last year, from 2023. You'll notice that we're a relative new kid on the block up there. Our project is a much earlier stage than these other ones. So I'll be talking a lot about the geology, not so much about where we fit into the global market for gold resources. This is where we're located, and I'll be pointing to the screen on the left, your right-hand side. That's Astro there in the belt. We're at the far eastern end of the Tombstone Gold Belt. Another image of a similar thing. So our primary project areas are the Hit, Astro, and Sur. Those are three properties that we optioned late in 2022. All of the other properties highlighted in red are Rackla properties. Those are ones we staked. We now own all properties 100%. We exercised our options on the Astro, Hit, and Sur in the fall of this year because we liked what we saw. And those three form what we're calling the Astro-Plutonic Complex, which is what's highlighted in the circle over here. And you'll note at the bottom of the circle, there is a road. That's the North Canal Road, which goes from Ross River up to the Northwest Territories Yukon border. So that provides access to our camp. And the little airplane down here is where our camp is located. So we consider that our project area is road accessible. The road doesn't go into the claims, but it's a short hop, anywhere from 3 to 20 kilometers by helicopter from camp to the property site. So I'll start with our HIT project. It's probably our most significant at present. It's centered around a stock that's known as a Canal Trail stock. It's a Cretaceous-aged tungsten sweet Monzo granite. The stock measures 2.5 kilometers 2.5 square kilometers. And within that stock, you'll notice there's a large soil geochemical anomaly within and on the margins on the west-hand side that measures 1.7 kilometers. Last year, excuse me, last year we started the program. There was a historic bit of exploration done on the property, but it was very sporadic over the years, not all-encompassing. So we started our program following up on some of the anomalies there and quickly identified the area on the western margins of that stock where there was an abundance of sheeted veins, and I'll show you a photo of what that looks like on the next slide. Because of that, we decided to lay out a large grid, soil sample grid on the west side, and that's where these anomalies come from. And that soil geochemical anomaly shows an arsenic-bismuth gold association closer to the stock and arsenic gold away from the stock, typical of what the model that Michael showed us earlier would show. And then you'll notice the squares dotted all around the property are gold assays from surface sampling. We got many samples that are above 1 gram gold and quite a few that are greater than 3 grams of gold. Oh, yeah, actually, I'll just go back there and I'll show you. We drilled 5 reconnaissance-type drill holes on the property late in the 2023 season. Hole 1 was roughly in the middle. Hole 2, just a little bit south of there. Holes 3 and 4, which I guess I could say are probably our discovery of what we now recognize to be a true reduced intrusion-related gold system, and then hole 5 down over here. So now we'll look at a cross-section of holes 3 and 4. 3 was drilled to the northeasterly, 4 was drilled to the west. You can see some of the values that we were getting there. 0.6 grams per ton over 16 meters or so on 2 intervals in hole 3. The total of that interval is about 0.3 over 135 meters. And then down at the bottom of hole 4, we got 0.5 gram over 45.5 meters. And throughout both of those holes, you can see a picture down here that shows the stripy nature of the sheeted veins in that core. The sheeted vein density was up to about 54 veins per meter. So it's quite intense sheeted veining. Most of them are quite narrow. They're on the order of millimeter size, but you can see some larger quartz-filled sheeted veins like here. And this interval in particular ran 8.5 grams of gold over, I think it was 1 meter in that case. This is what it looks like on surface. So those sheeted veins, where they're filled with sulfide, the sulfide weathers out in surface, and the rock forms these slabs. And most of the area is above tree line. So when you come across stuff like this, you know there's a good density of sheeted veining in the ground. So our prospecting crews have been looking for that. Looking at just the chemistry of these two holes, our bismuth to gold ratio is 151 bismuth to 1 gold. Our arsenic to gold ratio is 1,293 to 1, and then tellurium is 3 to 1. The gold, I also looked at the correlation matrix of the gold to those elements. It's strongest with tellurium, but quite good as well with arsenic and bismuth. This is what the slope looks like there. So this is looking from the north to the south, so it's in the opposite direction of the cross-section we looked at. Hole 3 would have been drilled this way, and hole 4 would have been drilled that way. So you maybe get a sense of how gossinous this slope is and how fractured up all of the talus is, again, because of the slabby nature of the material once the sulfide in the sheeted vein weathers out. That slope that we're looking at there is about 400 meters wide, 250 meters in vertical. That'll become the area of our focus drilling for 2024. I'll now move down to the Sur property, which is about 12 kilometers south of Hit. Sur is a little earlier stage. We haven't drilled it yet. We did the same suite of surveys on it, starting with stream sed sampling, soil sampling, a lot of prospecting. We also flew airborne geophysical survey on both of those. Both of them do show the classic reduced intrusion related gold system where you have a magnetic low surrounded by magnetic highs. The Sur soil anomaly measures 1.3 square kilometers. A couple of photos scattered throughout the property area. You can see the talus looks similar to what we were seeing at Hit. But most of these samples, or in fact all of these photos, were in the Hornfels margin. They're not so much in the intrusion. The Sur intrusion is a Tombstone suite intrusion. That's the way it's classified. And if you remember, Hit was a tungsten suite. What we see, they look very similar. So I don't know if we could say that we see any differences yet at this point. And hasn't been drilled yet, but it'll be the focus of drilling in this coming year. And then over to our Astro project. So Astro is the large intrusion in the center here. It measures about 8 kilometers across. Going into last season, it had the most work done on it. So it was most defined. Most of that work, or virtually all of that work, was done in the sedimentary rocks outside of the intrusion. But the geochemical signature that we were seeing was pointing to a reduced intrusion-related signature. So we took our work and took that historic work and brought it all inside the intrusion, did some talus fine samplings at the base of slopes, lots of prospecting and rock sampling. We were getting gold kind of all over the area from surface samples. We drilled 12 holes for 2,000 meters and a variety of targets in there. We were getting gold mineralization. We were seeing sheeted veins. We're seeing the right chemical signature, but there wasn't any good solid thing that we could sink our teeth into. They're very scattered gold values. So we got to take a step back and do some more surface work and reevaluate that. Something I've been thinking lately is, if you remember the model that Michael showed, maybe we're just a little too far down in the system. We're well below the cupola, so we're not. That's why we're not seeing the good gold mineralization. And here's an example of one hole showing some of the alteration, a lot of sericite alteration in the upper part of that, and then the sheeted veining. This is our team. Simon Ridgway is here. Simon's got a long history in the Yukon. He started there, I believe it was line cutting and prospecting in the 70s. Some of that work was done in the Mac Pass area, so he's very familiar with that region. There's myself and 2 young geologists sitting out here. Doug and Armand did a great job clambering around on those hills, and the rest of the team. We've got 71 million shares out right now, fully diluted 91. Cash, we got just about 2 million in the bank right now. So we've got enough to start our program. We're looking to do about 6,000 meters of drilling in 2024. So we'll need to go back to the markets to raise a little bit before we do that. And here's our share price over the last 3 years. This is the embarrassing part. I joined the company about a year ago. I don't know what that says, but hopefully I can turn things around. And our road ahead. So we're formulating our plans for drilling. HIT will be the main focus of drilling, about 4,000 meters planned there. Hopefully we'll get some success. We got lots of room to maybe fit a valley in there or something. And then SIR will have a maiden drill program on it, planning about 2,000 meters there. Astro, go back to the basics, some more mapping, boots on the ground, prospecting. And our other projects are much earlier stage, so we'll try to bring them up to the drill ready stage for later in 2024, 2025. Thank you very much.
Great, Scott. Well, I go back 4 years, so you're up 61%.
There we go.
In 4 years. You're really at the proof of concept drilling stage.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. And what grade and thickness? I realize you've pivoted to HIT now as a focus. What grade and thickness are you really looking for as a discovery hole benchmark?
Yeah, so I'm kind of saying right now that 4 is our discovery because that was the proof of concept. What I would hope to get, these deposits, other than Valley, are generally around a gram or below a gram, over a couple hundred meters. I think that would be
okay. 100
pretty
to
happy.
200 grams.
100 to 200, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I didn't mention that, our grades are a little lower than all of the people up on stage here, but if you look at the margins of their deposit, you'll see similar grades, similar intercepts in some of their early drilling. So that's kind of what we're hanging our hat on, that we're close.
Okay. Thank you. Craig Hart.
All right. Thanks a lot.
I'll mention that those diagrams that I showed, those are Craig's, the section in the plan. Yeah. Just nothing to...
No problem. No, I've been very fortunate to have the ability to contribute towards developing this reduced intrusion-related gold model when I was working for the Yukon Geological Survey. And so it's fantastic to sort of come full circle around back to being able to implement and apply those sort of observations in terms of exploration and trying to get some exploration success, and to be up here on the stage with friends and colleagues and have representation of government and First Nations. Like, this is an amazing coalescence of amazing things that are really part of what makes the Yukon fantastic. I'm the chairman and independent director of Snowline Gold Corp. Snowline came about as a result of the pulling the assets of a family prospecting ventures for over the last 30 years, Ron and Scott Bradall, and this was sort of brought into, it was RTO'd into a shell and went public in April of 2021. We were very successful in that our first summer in 2021, we made 2 significant discoveries, and just in the short time since then, we've had a tremendous amount of growth. What we're looking at is our main asset is called Valley, and you can sort of see right here, this is a big valley, and that's the deposit that we're sort of aiming to define is right in the middle there. There's really no significant topographic challenges. The road to access it would be just continuing along that valley to meet up with an existing winter trail that's just down at the end. So it is remote, but it's not that bad in terms of opportunity to exploit this if we ever get to that point. I'm probably going to gesticulate and wave my arms. I think this is a lot of words that just sort of say that. As indicated, we're over on the east side of this belt, and I think that's really interesting as well. When I was sort of putting the papers together that define this, I really emphasized that the value opportunities were mostly in the western part of this belt, and so it's really fantastic that we were able to extend the opportunities and indicate the fertility extends further to the east within this belt, and so I think there's some upside potential that we can all probably get from expanding exploration throughout that belt. As a company, we've got a tremendous land package. It started off reasonably small. It was sort of atrophying over many years prior to coming into the company. But after every significant milestone, we've been adding claims to our land package, as well as purchasing ground positions that we thought has significant potential. So our land package has been significantly increasing, and this gives us an opportunity to exploit our own competitive advantage because we understand these deposits a lot better than our competitors would. So having this larger land package is really an asset for our further discoveries. You can sort of see right here, this is our Jupiter, which is our first discovery. And actually, 2 years ago today is when the press release came out that indicated that we had hit 137 meters of 1.2 grams or something like that. That was our first 100 gram meter hole, was exactly 2 years ago today. So on our, that's on our valley deposit. And so just within 2 years, we have come sort of this far. It's really quite amazing. So yeah, our first discovery at Jupiter, our second discovery, as I just said, at Valley. Our Forks camp is right in between the two of them. As I indicated, as you go from Valley, you can look down, and we come to this place right here, which is a high-grade silver mine that operated previously in the 80s. And that's connected to the Plateau Winter Trail that comes down, that connects to the government North Canal road. I almost said highway. So infrastructurally, it doesn't look like it's going to be a significant effort to connect us to existing infrastructure. As our share curve looks pretty good, as I indicated, like 2 years ago when that first press release came out, I think we were trading at 58 cents. Now we're up significantly higher than that. I think there's a total growth of about 880% over that period. Our share structure is really quite good. We have a very high percentage that's owned by management, by insiders, and increasingly by funds and institutions. So we have about 41% that we know of that's out in the retail float. Total shares outstanding are about 146 million. Or sorry, total outstanding would be about 164. There's about 146 out trading right now. We have a number of options and warrants, of course, that they're all in the money. Our cash at hand right now is about 35 million, and we anticipate that there's going to be a number of options and warrants exercised in the next several months, and so that'll probably bring another $16 million into our bank account. We've had a fantastic year in terms of getting recognition from various aspects of the markets, and most importantly, we've had analyst coverage come on from 6 different organizations, and I think that's amazing to have that happen in 1 year. There's some very, very smart people here, and the reports that they put out are fantastic, and I would really encourage you to search them out. They really have been a key in providing a lot of the technical knowledge back into the community that we haven't had the opportunity to do, and so it's really been a fantastic thing for us to have the opportunity for them to promote our successes. Institutionally, we've been doing very well. I think recently we've had significant uptick in terms of institutions pulling shares out of the retail space. At least probably 4 to 5 million that we could count over the last few months. And we've got some very heavy hitters in there, 1832, Van Eck, and there's some other partners in there that aren't really typical, and I think that's really telling the market some advantage of how we've been able to de-risk that we're getting funds coming in that wouldn't normally be participating in the junior mining space. Of course, we had really good early support from Crescat that got us up and running, and more recently, of course, we've had a 9.9 uptake from B2 Gold, and we're very happy to have them come along as a partner, and that, of course, also justifies the economic opportunity that exists here. We've got a great young team. I'm so proud of all these people. Once again, Scott sends his regrets that he can't make it here, but these are a lot of young people that come with good experience, and they've been given way more responsibility than they really should have had, but everybody has stepped up into that space and grown into that space. It really has been extraordinary for me to see that, and the company has taken on dimensionality that I had never, ever expected. You know, we've got great people coming in, every one of them. Thomas comes with years and years of experience in running big camps. Sergio comes to us as from Barrick, previously a country manager in Argentina and Chile. Every one of these people. Stephanie wasn't in the mining space, but has really come to adopt and love it. Zoe has really completely changed the way that our data is managed, and our data management right now is extraordinary. There's a dashboard, and we can see every rock sample that was taken during that day. We can see every photograph of every outcrop that was visited that day. It really is extraordinary. And we've got a great board. We're amazingly active, and we're not passive at all. There's a lot of interaction between all of our members. Sarah is here right now, and she, of course, is a key component of making C3 work as well as they do in terms of community relationships and communications. Gunter has come to us from the earlier Shell and has significant capital markets experience. Callum also huge capital markets experience and has, of course, a past with Great Bear, Royalty and Great Bear was their CFO. So we really have an incredible team. Onto the geology, it's very simple, right? A lot of you, we've been having these discussions today and we've seen about these reduced intrusion-related gold systems. They are systems that form around a central mineralizing pluton. That pluton is a bunch of magma that eventually chilled out and put a whole bunch of fluid and gold into the rock. And you can sort of see a little bit of the outline. We have about a 1.2 kilometer wide small intrusion, and the mineralization is mostly in the western, southwestern half of that. You can see all those colors in there. Of course, the brighter colors are representing higher grades, and our grades we have are really spectacular for this type of deposit. Most of the existing deposits have grades that are around that 0.6, 0.7. Most of our grades are at least twice that. And you know, Mother Nature has done some amazing things here in giving us exceptional geology, is that we have grades that are 3 times, 5 times, 6 times higher than that, all in the near surface environment. Right? We have you know, some of those you know, incredibly long intersections, 553 meters of 2.5 grams, including, what's that, 183 at 4 grams per ton right at surface. So this is really, the gold distribution here is absolutely spectacular that the geology has provided these sort of geometries for us. But there's nothing that's exceptional here. This is just really a perfect bulk tonnage gold system. Looking at cross sections, you can see we have very, very long continuous intersections. Almost every drill hole is mineralized for its entirety. Of course, there's higher grade sections in there, and yeah, this is I think, you know, one of the more spectacular ones that we've put out recently. And you can see geologically here we have the hornfells on the left side. The pink is, of course, our main coarse granodiorite. But we have this fine granodiorite that's down there at depth that we intrude many times, and our feeling is that that fine-grained granodiorite, it's darker, and it seems to be a key component in terms of you know, potentially bringing more fluids into the system, and we can see immediately above and around that is where a lot of our higher grade mineralization is hanging out. We thought we'd be a little bit cheeky and put together a list of all of the drill holes that were drilled over bulk tonnage gold systems around the world. And when we first put this on there, we had about 5 of them. But as we've been growing, we've been sort of knocking other ones out. And so we've down to where we just have 1. And actually we put out 3 holes today, and 2 of those holes would be on here as well. So would be at the top 11. So, you know, 600, 700, 800 gram meter holes are sort of becoming de rigueur for this deposit, and we have some spectacular, you know, 1,000, 11, 12, 1,300 gram meter holes as well. So when you start seeing these things all lined up, it really emphasizes the sense that it's big, it's continuous, and that this is a unique beast that's out there. The people who are in the markets, you know, Michael and others, are telling us there is nothing else out there that really hits all of those boxes and is in a first world jurisdiction, as at the surface, and has high grades as it does so close to the surface. So we're increasingly recognizing that you know, Mother Nature has provided a geological scenario here that really is exceptional. And I think, coming back to me defining the model, this would not fit into the model. So this deposit, this discovery, significantly changes what the opportunities are within this mineral deposit model. Just looking ahead to 2024, of course, we're very well funded. We anticipate an aggressive 20,000 meter drill program. Part of the focus is going to be on our valley discovery. We thought that the continuity of grade there would be enough to provide the basis for a resource, but the people that do those calculations have really said we need to have much tighter spacing. And so we'll be doing that, and as well, it's open on 2 dimensions at depth and our northeastern corner is still open, and we're still growing into that space. So we're still in an expansion space in terms of creating more volume. The other thing we found is sometimes we'll be 100 meters, 120 meters between two holes, and the upper 200 meters will be maybe 2 grams each, and the hole we drill in the middle will be 4 grams. And so there's a tremendous amount of upgrading in terms of number of ounces that we've found by doing this infill drilling as well. Regionally, within that valley discovery area, with the rogue area is what we call, we've had a few holes into a Gracie target. This is one that is buried, it's not unroofed. And so we're having some, we don't see exactly what the target is. So it's a little bit more challenging, and we had some challenging drilling last year because of the pads were shifting. But Gracie will be a part of our focus for next year. Cujo, we got 1 hole into that. We got a long intersection of half-gram material telling us that there's something bigger to be found. Reed, same sort of thing. Technical success, we got long intersections of low grade. Need to find the high grade in there. We'll be going back to that. And as well, we've got 4 additional targets that we anticipate having coming up to the threshold where they're going to be ready to drill as well. So we have a number of targets that we're aiming for to try and find the next valley discovery. As well indicated, we have this huge greenfields package, large extensive geochemical database. We're going to be flying lots of geophysics next year, and so we anticipate finding some more targets this summer again. Thank you.
Okay, great, Craig. Since IPO in 2021, stock price up 1,314%, so fantastic. Maybe just a quick comment on how important was it to have the trailblazing of the Victoria Eagle mine up and running and permitted, and also at the other end of the spectrum, that early capital from Crescat Capital in terms of injecting that?
Yeah, well, no, I think I'd go back a step far. You know, the whole model itself is defined largely on the success at Fort Knox, right? And I think that sort of provides the economic foundations for the opportunity. The success at Vic Gold in terms of them going into production really solidified that the Yukon has a process that works, that you can go through it, and you can get to the point where you're actually in commercial production. And the second part was on...
just the early high-risk exploration dollars accessing that...
Yeah, I think everybody's challenged to find those higher-risk dollars, and we were fortunate that Crescat recognized there was a value, there was an opportunity in this style of deposit. They felt good about the jurisdiction, and Scott has a good relationship with Quentin Henning, and so we were fortunate to be able to bring them on to cover a lot of those early high-risk exploration expenses.
Okay, thank you very much. Disclosure-wise, cover Snowline. We've done some advisory work on the financial side with Sitka, and I own all 4 companies up here today. Well, let's get into some Q&A amongst the 4 panelists. We've got about 15 minutes left or so. If you've got a burning question, just get your hand up, get the mic, and we'll make sure you can ask a question here. But I want to start, I think, with Mike, 2 things. What was your first drill hole, diamond drill hole result that Sitka drilled, and when was your first 100 gram meter, plus 100 gram meter intersection?
Yeah, interestingly, we've always referred to hole 21 in the Blackjack as being the discovery hole, but in 2020, Core did a drill program up there, 6 holes, the first kind of reconnaissance scale drilling. And 2 of those holes clipped the Blackjack zone and the Eiger zone. The Blackjack zone hole was about a 140 gram meter hole, and the Eiger was around the same. So over 200 meters at 0.6 and 0.7 in those. So that was a pretty pivotal moment that really gave them the ability to raise money to do a larger exploration program the next year. And that's when the Blackjack discovery hole was 220 meters at 1.17 grams. Okay. So launched into the next realm.
And people may or may not know this, but analysts can publish gram meter intersections, the product of the grade times the meters, but companies can't, right? So I think analysts find it really worthwhile. I think the senior mining companies and the producers do as well. Just a quick anecdote, very briefly, on need to hear the RC story, the legacy of previously the project was drilled with RC.
Yeah.
Now you've been diamond drilling. Maybe just an anecdote for everyone on that, because I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, these projects go through many phases before you get the lucky discovery hole. But back in 2010, 2011, it was drilled with reverse circulation drills, large drill rigs that really, you know, sometimes they're less expensive and that's why they were looked at, but they couldn't really reach the targets given the road access up there. So they were a little impeded. They did hit some interesting results, but couldn't get into the guts of the system where the diamond drill did in 2020 and then up till 2023 and keep going on them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Tara, let's focus on a couple things. You asked me to ask you tough questions. Just go back to the metallurgy. What's the strategy there? Because it looks like that needs to really be resolved in order for you to figure out a flow sheet, how you're going to sort, because it's not the same. It's sediment hosted, and so you've got sheeted veins, flat veins. Just help us navigate through that. Will you be doing a systematic metallic screen program or not? And also, I'm going to add this question in here. Is it important to you to get to 8 million ounces and grow the resource to 8 million ounces and kind of be in a special club? I think globally since 2006, there's only been about 10 projects get to 8 million ounces. So two-part question.
So, okay, starting with the metallurgy, and I know that's something, you know, originally we were looking at ourselves like a heap leach, and so, you know, we were Victoria Gold 2.0, and so, you know, we started down the path of looking at only heap leach in our metallurgy. But it became really apparent that, you know, we should look at other options, partly from talking to some of the corporates and others that say, hey, you know, this is this big, and, you know, the longer term, you know, might want to also be doing the work to look at conventional milling. And we do know that, you know, we are looking at, we know it's not, you know, needing a roaster. So we started looking at CIP, CIL, flotation, in addition to heap leach. And, you know, you can also have combinations of those like Fort Knox. So, you know, if we will be putting out some results soon, hoping to get to one flow sheet, but, you know, having multiple flow sheets and optionality is also a good thing. But it does mean that your metallurgy is more expensive because you have to do, and we have 3 deposits times 3 different processes. You know, that's adds up pretty quick. Plus 5 kilometers representative sampling was also an issue. You know, we haven't done the new extension to Oryx Hill yet. We're starting to think about Oryx Hill and probably airstrip in our next phase of metallurgy. We really, power line's the bulk of the resource, 3.8 million ounces, and so that's been our focus on how it, and it's also where we're seeing some of the consistent higher grade, and that's a big part of the story too in the processing option is how do we define and understand our high grade, and it goes to your question about 8 million ounces. Do we go to 8 million ounces? Because we can see, you know, we've worked hard to look at where would we drill specifically if we wanted to target 8 million ounces, because a couple of my big shareholders say, hey, that's not too big. But my shareholders also say, find that high-grade core that shows that this is really an economic project with any of the processing options. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Yes, we've got the metallurgical work ongoing, and metallurgy is just not fast, unfortunately, particularly when you're dealing with coarse gold in heap leaching.
So is the 2024 strategy to grow the resource or infill?
We're going to let you know in a couple months. Okay. We're still doing a lot of work, and that's the thing about we've got cash. How do we best spend that to add value in the context of this market? How much of our money are we going to spend? We haven't decided that yet. We do know we're going to do a phase 2 metallurgical program. We're encouraged by what we're seeing. We know that you do metallurgy up to the day you start mining, and I think John would say you do it continuously after as well. Sure. So that's definitely part of the program because I think it's the next real key catalyst and value generator for us. But, you know, we've got both options to focus on our higher grade or add ounces to get us increase the resource, and we have regional targets. So
Craig, thank you, Tara.
Yeah, no worries.
Why is Valley so high grade?
Oh, that's a great question, and we ask ourselves that all the time. There's a couple of things that have sort of, you know, you could wave your arms about, and maybe I will. Is Valley is within a region where there's a very high density of intrusions that we call the rogue plutonic complex. And that rogue plutonic complex puts a tremendous amount of heat energy into the crust. And so we think that, you know, every ore system needs to be driven by energy. And so we think that that might be part of sort of almost pre-warming up the crust before you have this later intrusion come in, so that when the processes are happening, they can happen in a much more robust or efficient manner. That could be one thing. The other thing, and I sort of alluded to this, was that fine granodiorite down there. That might have a source of a material we call lamprophite that might come from the mantle, and it's a particularly wet part of the mantle. And so what we're sort of seeing, just by analogy, we don't understand the processes, but by association, we frequently see these sort of lampropheric rocks coming up into places where we find the gold mineralization. So having that pretty direct connection to the lamprophere or the fine granodiorite might also be a key component to have upgraded that system.
And you've referred to lampropheres being, I think, Sitka's RC project. And
yep.
I'm not sure, at Victoria Eagle as well?
Oh, well, see, even at Victoria, you can see the lamprophires actually mixing with the intrusion there, and sort of and the lamprophere is probably bringing fluid and sulfur and metals into it, and we can see evidence that it was mixing there. So that's part of understanding the process that might be you know, contributing to bringing the gold, or at least enriching the system. And
can you remind us the first drill hole that was drilled at Valley, the grades and length?
Yeah, well, like you know, I remember we had success at Jupiter, and it was fantastic, but we were camped at a lake, and winter was coming, and we needed to get off the lake before it froze up, otherwise you can't get the float planes in and out. And so we had a window of about 12 days that we thought that we could probably have a small drill program, so we dragged the drill from Jupiter down to Valley. Scott and I are out there scouting around for a place to drill, and we had this big soil anomaly, but there was actually a place where there was rocks, where there were samples, and Mike was part of those early rock sampling efforts when he was with Golden Predator. And so we set the drill up just back from that outcrop, but it was outside the intrusion. We're 60 meters beyond the intrusion, but that was the place where the outcrop was, so we knew we could get an intersection. And so we drilled it. We got VG in our first hole, and yeah, I think it was 137 meters of 1.01 grams or something like that. That gave us our first 100-meter gram intersection.
Okay, well, thank you. Because Scott, you alluded to your benchmark, 100 to 200 would be discovery hole. You've got lots of projects, targets. Do you think you need lots of shots on goal in terms of number of drill holes to really characterize each target? Or is there a risk of having not enough holes into a target to really understand it and move on or persevere?
Well, yeah, I'd say that's probably true, because if you look at over this last year, we drilled in total, there were 17 holes, 12 on Astro, 5 on HIT, and we were testing a bunch of different targets, and it's quite a sizable area. And yet, towards the end of the program, where our understanding of the system was becoming better, we were more successful with the holes on HIT 3 and 4. So last year was our first year there, working on the project as well. So we were learning a lot as the summer went on. So yeah, it can be quite challenging to get that initial success. We don't have a 100-gram meter intercept yet, but remember I showed a forward-looking statement. That's coming in 2024.
Okay. And Gary Sidhu of Pathfinder couldn't make it this morning, but he wants to know, why is your vein density so high without the grade?
Yeah, a good question. Any ideas, Craig? The veins are quite tight where that density is high. So if you look at total material within a meter, it probably is not much more than a couple of centimeters. And the veins are different. If you remember on the photo I showed, the high density veins are very narrow, mostly sulfide filled. And there's some broader 1 centimeter wide, 2 centimeter wide quartz sulfide veins. Our highest grade interval that I showed there had a lot of the quartz veins, so I think we're seeing a different paragenesis on those two veins, and it might be the white quartz veins, thicker quartz veins that
quartz vein volume.
Yep.
Things like that. Okay. Just looking at the audience, we do have a question. Can we have the microphone come up to the front here, and then over here with Mark? Right up here, Jasmine, at the very front. We've got about, I think we've got 7 minutes left or so, actually maybe a little bit less. So let's have those, and at the very end we'll have some short
I
snappers.
would like to know from Snowline what they feel is a base number of ounces that would be required to have a standalone operation at Snowline, and how far it really is between the gravel road and where you think you might have your first mine.
Okay, if we can get the microphone back and bring it over to Mark, that'd be great. Thanks. And we'll have fairly brief answers here.
Yeah, I think you're asking for an economic analysis essentially in terms of the economy part of it, and we don't have a resource yet and resource numbers yet, and so it's really premature for us to be making those sort of decisions or comments. But I think when you look at the financial analysts that have been looking at these things, they have made some suggestions in that space, and that might be worth searching out. The distance between excuse me, I think the distance between where our Valley deposit is and where Plata is, which is sort of the end of the road, is about 30 kilometers. Probably to, from an engineering perspective, you might have to probably go farther to get onto that road, and then that's about 100 kilometers and maybe 110 to get to the gravel highway that the government maintains.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question of Tara. Regarding your metallurgy, and we've seen this within our company at times, storing your samples is an important aspect towards being able to recover those samples and do a truly representative study. Now you have a huge area which you've drilled, so hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drill holes. That material, is it well stored? Are the rejects well stored? And therefore, can you recreate a good metallurgical program when you need to?
So all the recent drilling, the rejects are certainly well stored. The historical stuff, pre-Banyan taking on the property, a little bit less so. And the core was all outside, and our core is also outside. So that airstrip will be, I think we do need to re-drill some of it to get put a few holes in there for metallurgy, because it was, we last drilled that in 2019, and that's probably too long for a good sample. So yeah, we are very conscious of making sure that we got a lot of rejects in a lot of places that we're storing and managing, and and we realize how valuable that'll be for our future metallurgy, and we're drawing on them now. Even we just shipped before Christmas, I don't know how many tons, but a lot of sample, because it's so big and you want to get representative samples. Pulling that material and getting it to the lab is a significant amount of work, and then even just putting together the composites that we're putting together for the next phase of testing takes a lot of thought, and then making sure you've got the right material there, and enough material was the other challenge we had. Originally, we hadn't shipped enough material to the lab.
I think we'll just ask one more question, and maybe just to end it for everyone. I asked this in October too, but exploration tool, if you only had one going forward, not the drill, to find a permissive interest-related gold deposit, what would it be, starting with Craig?
Well,
and I know your answer.
Excuse me. It has to be just prospecting, right?
Yeah.
Is that, because we understand that the ore type are these sheeted veins, and so it's just out there looking at and for sheeted veins. Sometimes when the rocks are all busted up by the frost and everything, the veins will fall off, and they'll fall down between the boulders, but there's a little vein material down there. So when you're soil sampling, you need to reach down between the boulders, and that's where the grade will be.
Okay, Mike Berkey?
Yeah, soil sampling, prospecting, like Craig says. I've been many places where the ore bearing or the gold bearing material is eroded off, weathered off, and you don't really see it when you're banging the rocks, but the soil sampling shows it up, and then you can go back and focus your efforts.
Okay. Scott?
Same thing, prospecting.
Okay.
Those pictures I showed on the slopes there, when you find something like that, you're into something that needs a lot more work done on it.
Terry, you don't have outcrop.
No, we don't have outcrop, but soils, gave us a sniff. Certainly, we wouldn't have found all of Powerline if we were only relying on soils. And the geophysics makes sense now that we can define a deposit, but originally it wasn't tremendously helpful. But there's all kinds of different techniques now. So if we didn't have, and our topography is, so that's why soils don't work, is it's really moderate topography, and there's no outcrop there, right? So maybe geophysics. Modern geophysics.
Yeah, I want to put out a shout out for geophysics too, because I think when you're looking for intrusions, that's where is, there's very clear characteristics with having magnetic donuts around these intrusions, and they're far more resistant than the rocks around them, and so other EM methods, for example, can see them as well. So there's
okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for your attention this morning. That's all the time we have. Oh, we've got one more.
If I could just.
Okay.
Quick question
Sure.
of everybody. It's what's their biggest challenge as they move forward to either production or a takeover?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, that's a great question. We've just, recently made our discovery. We're still defining our deposit. So the biggest challenge ahead of us is just the exploration phase and what is it exactly we're looking at. And then moving beyond that, it's how we put this deposit into production in a way that benefits all Yukoners and the First Nation of Notcho-Nyack-Dun and all the partners on the project.
Scott?
So we really need to drill, I think, in order to make that discovery. I think we're on the verge of that. So financing would I think, be the key thing for us at this stage so that we can get out there and do a good drill test.
Tara?
Really moving it forward to demonstrate that there's a potentially economic project there, both understanding the higher grade, the metallurgy, and scale of resource.
Okay, Craig?
I think for us it's time. I think there's a lot of pressure for us to be moving this thing as fast as we possibly can. We're working really hard to do that, but we come up against infrastructure problems, permitting problems, people problems, just trying to get all of those components into a place where we can accelerate this as fast as we can. Those where our limits are.
Okay, no, thank you. Want to acknowledge Chief Donna Hope. Your opening address was very meaningful and impactful. Thank you. And please thank our panelists, the companies that presented today. I hope they found this informative. And we didn't get into Andy Brown's structural mega thinking, but at 3 o'clock today, Craig and I are going to talk. We're going to have a session. So once again, a hand of applause for the four panelists. Good job.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming. I would like to mention we have a number of appearances today from all 4 companies and corporate presentations, which are up on the board. Thank you.